First of all, Shaolin is the name of a Buddhist monastery in China, Henan province. Shaolin does not mean young forest as many foreigners believe. The origin of the name, if you are back to the North Wei dynasty, you will understand the emperor had many experts to help him to choose the right location to build a temple in respect of Batuo, the first Indian monk to come to China. So they decided to take Song Mountain, which is one of the 5 sacred mountains in China, which is divided in 2 parts. You have western side, the high peak Taishashan, and the eastern side, low peak Shaoshashan. So at Shaoshi Mountain, north foot in the forest, you have a temple, Shaolin. How does Shaolin turned into Young Forest as a translation? When I was in China, I heard a story. One side the tour guides, one side the foreigners, and you have to be back to the 80s when China is opening to the Western countries. Tour guides didn't have too much knowledge to the place they were explaining to visitors, and foreigners didn't have too much answers. So the story says that they both did similar thing, took the dictionary and took each character, Shao as young, Lin as forest, and then put it together, young forest, which is wrong basically because as I said, Shaolin, the origin of the name is based on the location, Shaoshi Mountain north foot in the forest. That was an interesting period because I was invited to some conferences when I was living in China, and some experts were saying that probably Shaolin Kung Fu was born by mistake or did evaluate by mistake because it's a Buddhist monastery, people come inside to make a spiritual retreat and not to practice an art. So if Bodhidharma didn't come and if around Shaolin Temple wasn't a conflict area, probably the Shaolin Kung Fu did not evaluate as it is today. Many people will say that it was a logical evolution because we had Bodhidharma coming to Shaolin and showing a gymnastic to the monk, and second, we had sometimes at some periods around Shaolin bad behaviors, so they had to defend the monastery. We have a sentence in Chinese which says 天下功夫出少林 literally means martial arts in the world come from Shaolin. It's a good legend. Today we know it's wrong. Today we know that before Shaolin Kung Fu we have the Chinese wrestling, which has an extraordinary history. Before that we have the indie system like the calorie payette. But we know that even before Shaolin Temple we have many systems, and outside of the temple we have some boxing coming from villages, families, some other traditions. So it's a good story. I won't talk too much about how Shaolin culture is spreading overseas or even in France, because many foreigners still are very confused on the Chinese Buddhism, Shaolin culture. You have the inner organization in Shaolin Temple with the Sangha, and you have the Shaolin culture outside of the temple. So, and you have the topics like who is a real monk, who is just a lay disciple, who is playing with the name, many things. If you explain and you give the truth at one time, many people won't accept it, and you're gonna have many jealousy or whatever. Me at Shaolin Temple, I'm just a lay disciple. I'm not even a monk. I have family, I have kids. I'm good with that. I'm happy with that. We can't ask people to speak Chinese because they practice Chinese martial arts. It's not an obligation, but it's a really important point to understand the language when you practice an art. You can have a very good dialogue with the masters and they can give approbations with everything you will explain about the culture and the boxing system you are learning. So it's a very good point, but never was an obligation to everybody. I was living in China for 8 years, in Beijing, the capital, and I worked for Shaolin Temple for a couple of years when I was creating the program for French-speaking countries and African classes. So I had many meetings with the Sangha and the Abbot, so I understand the inner organization of the temple. The Abbot asked me if I would like to make the study about Buddhism. I made it in Beijing, but I couldn't get the certification because I wanted to stay as a lay disciple, and I don't have the Chinese citizenship, so I couldn't go through the graduation. But I'm okay with it, and it's all good to me. And now today, with all of that, I'm just ready to share. We talk about Buddhism. There is a word it's coming to my mind: compassion. We try to understand the human being suffer, the suffering of people, try to give the best as possible, the best advice to people to find their own balance and just to be happy in life. We talk about Buddhism is just compassion, very important.